This is Mujib from North Country Kettlebells. Today I'm going to be talking about the Single Arm Kettlebell Clean and some of the components that go into doing safe and effective single arm kettlebell cleans. Now, the Single Arm Kettlebell Clean is a great movement unto itself for training force production, overall coordination, and force absorption. Now we're going to use this movement for setting up things like our clean and press or our single arm squat, but if you want to practice the movement by itself as its own exercise, it is a wonderful exercise for training those things. As with all the rest of the momentum-based kettlebell movements, our hips are really going to be powering that movement, and the arm is really just going to be working to guide the kettlebell into position. I want to take into account all of the components that make a kettlebell swing work. So having the kettlebell above the knees at the back swing, having the arm very close to the torso, capturing the kettlebell with the hips and powering the kettlebell with the hips, and just being quick and explosive in that movement. So all of the components that make up a good kettlebell swing are going to feed into a good single arm kettlebell clean. As we go into the backswing for the single arm kettlebell clean, we want to think that the arm is staying pressed right up against the torso, as if the triceps is staying pressed against the body. I'll think about it as if there's a towel tucked under my arm through the entirety of the movement. That even applies to the upward motion of the kettlebell clean. So as my hips drive and the kettlebell travels up my midline, I want to think that my arm is going to maintain contact with my torso that whole time, again as if I have a cloth or a towel tucked underneath my armpit, and I don't want that towel to come off as the kettlebell travels up. As that kettlebell travels up the midline, I'm going to insert my hand into the handle with a fairly loose grip. So I don't really have to death grip that handle, and I don't really have to do much with my hand to manipulate the kettlebell landing in place. In fact, I'm just going to insert my hand into the handle so that my wrist is locked, not folded back. And I want to imagine that with that hand insertion, the catch should feel very smooth. It should feel not necessarily effortless or soft, but it definitely shouldn't be smashing onto the back of my wrist. I want to imagine more like the kettlebell is wrapping around my wrist than that it's coming up and over my fist and landing. So as my hips drive, I bring that kettlebell directly up the midline. I'm going to be inserting my hand into that handle. The kettlebell is going to be wrapping around my wrist to land in that rack position and not jumping up and over my fist and landing on my wrist with a hard smash or bang. Now with the dismount, there is going to be a slight circular arc on the way down, but again, I want to maintain this contact of my arm to my torso as if I have the cloth under my armpit, and so I'm not going to be casting the kettlebell out in front of myself to get it down. As the kettlebell comes down, I'm going to prepare for that backswing, going right back into the path for my swings. I'm going to go right back into that backswing with my arm again directly up against my body, hand above the knees, kettlebell very close to the hips, and that's what's going to power the next clean. The cleans, when you have them down, should really feel fairly effortless. Again, this is a movement that we're going to use to set up for other kettlebell movements, and so it really shouldn't tax me that much to do it. If there's a lot of yanking, a lot of jolting that's happening with the kettlebell clean, or a lot of heavy impact, again, take it back to the beginning, practice what's going on with my two-handed swings, make sure that the kettlebell's staying very close to my body as I'm driving my hips and it's coming up into that rack position, and make sure that I'm thinking about inserting my hand and not flipping the kettlebell over to my wrist. As with any other kettlebell movement, we're just going to be thinking about keeping the rep counts pretty low when we're practicing. So if you're practicing cleans unto themselves, then you don't necessarily need to do many more than 10 repetitions per set. My suggestion, if you're going to be practicing the single arm kettlebell clean, is to add that single arm kettlebell clean into your presses and your squats. So I might do a kettlebell clean and press, a kettlebell clean and push press, kettlebell clean and one-armed squat, things like that, so that you're practicing the usage of the clean, and that way you can keep it nice and smooth and feeling fairly effortless so that you can set up for your next movement. Try out the single arm kettlebell clean. Let me know how you feel about that. Again, add it into the movements that you're going to be doing, such as presses and squats and lunges. And as always, we just want to be considering safety and effectiveness whenever we're practicing these movements. This is Mujib from North Country Kettlebells talking about the Single Arm Kettlebell Clean.